It's Paul Joseph Watson reporting for Infowars.com. Armed vigilante militia groups are now patrolling towns in Mexico to protect the local population against both drug lords and the government, because as we know, Mexico is one of the #1 outposts for the global drug trade, run primarily by US federal agencies, including the DEA and the CIA. So now we've got these amazing photos at the Wall Street Journal. Armed Mexican militia groups protecting the local population. Here it shows them, some of the people they caught via curfews and checkpoints actually on trial. They're having their own trials, and one of the quotes from one of the leaders of the vigilantes is, "The militias have shown the power armed people have over organized crime groups." And it's just amazing that they've actually been able to acquire any weapons at all, given that there's an almost total gun ban in Mexico, of course, apart from the criminals, of course, and the drug dealers. They've got plenty of guns because the Obama administration sent truckloads of semi-assault weapons and the like, machine guns, to them as part of Operation Fast and Furious. So, thanks to the Obama administration, the drug dealers are armed. Thanks to gun control laws, the local people are not. But these vigilante militias have now sprung up simply because of the decay, the collapse, the crime, the chaos in Mexico. Here's a photo of the ranchers in one of the towns in Mexico having a vote for the militias to provide security, and as you can see, it's pretty unanimous. Here they are donating money to the militia groups, and here they are with arrested somebody accused of rape. He presented evidence, he'd already been cleared of it. They let him go. They say they're not going to execute anyone, but they're basically providing their own trials. They're saying people can't have lawyers. And I mean, whatever your take on that is, the fact is that it's being caused by this collapse in the Mexican society as a result of the CIA's involvement in the local drug trade. Here's an article we had a couple of years ago, top Mexican drug lord, and this was just right as Fast and Furious was coming out. I traffic cocaine for the US government. And this guy brought in multi-ton quantities of cocaine, according to the court case, into the United States using various means. He was involved in the crash of the CIA torture jet. He was involved in the purchase of that jet that crashed, spilling out 4 tons of cocaine. And he admitted during this court case that he was working for the US government. This is the guy who imported multi-ton quantities of cocaine into the United States. So given the fact that the drug lords are actually being helped along, they're working for the US government, they're being handed weapons by the US government, is it any surprise that these desperate people in these towns and villages in Mexico are now turning to armed, masked men to provide security for the residents, actually having votes, voting them in to provide the security, running checkpoints, acting as judge and jury in these show trials. They say they're not going to execute anyone, they're just going to put people to work in hard labour, quote, constructing roads and bridges in chain gangs. So they've already got their own punishment system set up for these outsiders they catch, who they accuse of being involved in crime or being involved in the drug trade. And whatever your take on that is, the fact is that it's being caused mostly by the fact that Mexico is deliberately an outpost for the CIA-run drug trade. The war on drugs is a complete fraud. It's a war that's never meant to be won. It's a war that only affects innocent people. And all this is being fueled not only by the Mexican government, but by the Obama administration itself via Fast and Furious. The question is, how far away is America from a similar state of collapse? Well, while it's certainly not imminent, the signs are troubling. We've got a CBS Chicago report out today Chicago police changing response plan for some 9/11 calls, and they're basically not going to respond to criminal damage to property, vehicle thefts, garage burglaries, or other crimes which the suspect is no longer on the scene. So now they're starting to create a whole classification of crimes where police will simply refuse to respond. Detroit police, enter at your own risk. Detroit police to stop responding to unverified burglar alarms. In Oakland, police announced that they will not respond to burglary, grand theft and other crimes. Here's a USA Today report. Cutbacks force police to curtail calls for some crimes. So all throughout America, due to the budget cuts, the engineered financial depression, police services are being cut back. They're not responding to crimes, and it only serves to fuel vigilantism. Now, is it at the level that it is in Mexico, with these armed militias taking charge of security in towns and villages? Well, obviously it's not got to that level. But the fact that the US government is seemingly preparing for some kind of mass civil unrest, with the NDAA, indefinite detention of US citizens, now on the books, the huge ammo orders, over 1.6 billion rounds of ammo now purchased primarily by the Department of Homeland Security. We've got people like Jesse Jackson calling for DHS, armed DHS agents to patrol the streets. We got monitoring of social networks, of course, concerned with the fear of civil unrest, increased military training in urban areas right in front of the population where they can see it all. So how far away is America from a similar situation to Mexico? Well, it's not quite there yet, but the signs we're already seeing are very disturbing indeed. Here's an AFP report on Mexican vigilante militias patrolling towns and villages in Mexico.
Hey, calm down, calm down. I told you to stop. Stop.
A tense confrontation at an armed militia checkpoint in Mexico's Guerrero state. Checkpoints are dotted all over Mexico, but here it's ordinary citizens rather than soldiers or policemen who search passers-by. These isolated mountains south of Mexico City have long been a stronghold of violent drug trafficking gangs, and local people say security forces have done nothing to protect them. So at the beginning of January, exasperated villagers decided to take the law into their own hands.
This list is mostly of people who've been denounced by the local population. So we're searching the village and the local area and checking the main road.
Dentro y en las orillas del pueblo, también en la carretera federal.
They've even set up a makeshift prison to hold suspects in the village of El Mesón. 23 men and 4 women are detained here, all suspected of involvement in murders, extortion or kidnapping for ransom. The most dangerous are being held separately in a cell to stop them escaping. The militiamen say they treat prisoners humanely, and they'll set up a tribunal made of villagers to try them.
We announced it would be 10 to 1. If they catch one of us, we'll arrest 10 of them. We're giving it all we've got, and we're going to clean up Ayutla, part of the Costa Chica region.
People here say they have no choice but to impose their own justice, as they believe the security forces are riddled with corruption. According to the National Human Rights Commission, only 1% of crimes in Mexico result in a conviction, in a country that has seen at least 70,000 violent deaths linked to the drug war since 2006.
There were a lot of robberies on the roads and in the fields, thefts of animals. So we hardly went out. Several women were raped.
We have had enough of everything they've been doing, all this crime. It's time for us to wake up because we've been sleeping.
The Mexican government says the militia's actions are understandable, but they're outside the law and have sent in the army and police to take charge of some checkpoints. But they could have a fight on their hands, as the militia say there's no way they'll lay down their arms.